30,000 basketball fans at the Jacob Javits Convention Center on the west side of New York for the 1990 NBA Draft. 54 of the best college players will restock the NBA over the next 3.5 hours, and as usual, we'll be covering it for you live. Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Neal, and once again, the NBA is getting ready to reload to get into the battles that start in late October and early November and go all the way until the middle of June. It takes a lot of good players, and as in past drafts, some of the ones that go in the first round who are expected to be stars won't be. Some of those you don't know, like Dennis Rodman was, will become stars. It's what makes this exciting, very much like covering a convention sometimes. You're not exactly sure what's going to turn out. There's some tremendous players in the draft. Most people have said, if not spectacular, it's a solid draft. I can't say that about my colleagues tonight. They're spectacular any way you look at them. Two of the greatest players to ever play in the NBA, Doug Collins and Rick Barry. Doug, your thoughts about 1990 in the draft?
Well, I agree with you, Bob. I think that there's a lot of guys out there that are going to help ball clubs. Maybe not the franchise player, the Olajuwon, the Ewing, those kind of players, but there's a lot of shooters out there. The way the NBA is going now with the double teaming in the low post, there's such a premium on shooters. You hear all these general managers talk about we can't get enough people who can put the ball in the basket. I think there are a lot of those guys in this draft.
I know who knows about shooters. He's sitting to your left.
Yeah, I tell you, and it really does my heart good to see this. I kind of refer to this as the Top Gun draft. I mean, there are a lot of gunners out there. I think that after the first pick, which everybody assumes will be Coleman, but we're not really positive of that the rest of the top 10 is very liable to be shooters. Guys who can play the point or the 2 spot, the 2 and the 3 spot, but guys who can put the ball up and fill up the hole. There's a real need for that in the NBA, and that's what we're going to see, and it should be interesting to see where they fall.
And there was quite a bit of activity between the teams prior to the starting of tonight's draft. Let's have a look at the trades that took place. The one involving the most players was Sacramento, Utah, and Washington. Sacramento getting the bulk of the players, Utah getting that shooting guard that everybody thinks they need to get them further into the playoffs, and Washington taking a chance on a big man with Purvis Ellison. Other trade news, Sacramento and Dallas. Dallas getting Rodney McCray, Sacramento getting those first-round picks from Dallas, numbers 14 and 18, and Dallas also getting Fat Levers. So Dallas taking the bulk of the picks that they had this year and already getting a couple of proven players in McCray and Lever, and Denver getting that pick, then making a deal with Miami. That means that Denver is going to have a chance to select third in this draft, and the expansion team, Miami, getting a chance to get more players with 9 and 15. New Jersey and Chicago with the trade. New Jersey getting Chicago's pick at number 22, and Chicago getting that shooting guard to hopefully complement Michael Jordan, Dennis Hobson, who started getting a little better toward the end of the year last year with New Jersey, although he struggled some. New Jersey in a trade with Orlando gets Reggie Theus for the 93 and 95 second-round picks from Orlando. Now, because of that activity, there's a little bit of a change in the draft order. You see Denver moves up to third as you take a look at 1 through 6, New Jersey, Seattle, Denver, Orlando, Charlotte, and Minnesota. Picking 7th will be Sacramento. Miami, then 10 and 11, Atlanta today traded with Golden State, just flip-flopping positions from 10 and 11. Houston will pick 12th. The LA Clippers from Cleveland, Sacramento picks 14th. In Miami, Milwaukee and New York will pick 17th. You'll be sure there will be a lot of noise from the crowd when the Knicks make their selection. Sacramento, Boston, Minnesota, Phoenix, and New Jersey down to number 22. That was that New Jersey selection from Chicago. And picking last in the draft will be the team that had the best regular season NBA record. The LA Lakers, of course, the world champion Detroit Pistons, will pick number 26. So that's the order of the draft, and we'll be covering every one of them. In the first round, 5 minutes between those picks is the maximum that the teams have to select their player. And now also working with us as usual on our coverage of the NBA draft, our colleague Craig Sager.
Well, thanks, Bob. The theme of this year's draft is not Hoosier Hysteria nor Tobacco Road, but it centers on the Motor City. Basketball players like automobiles come in different sizes and shapes. And this year, for the first time, 4 players from the same team are on the NBA draft assembly line. Sean Higgins, Terry Mills, Rumeal Robinson, and Loy Vaught from the University of Michigan. Add the Pistons' NBA title. On top of that, the hometown of Derek Coleman. It seems that Detroit is the arsenal for the NBA, Steve Jones.
And that will probably give us something to argue about all year long. But I think, Craig, what we have to remember about this year's draft as we watch the reactions of the players and their family and friends is that this draft is going to be colored by the positions in which they're drafted in. There are no impact players, there are contributors. But the positions, they dominate the dollars. So if you're the number 1 pick, you want last year's number 1 pick money. who will get what Purvis Ellison got is really the question for the GMs this year.
And 18 of the biggest names in college basketball are here. We'll be interviewing them after they are selected. But now let's go back to Bob Neal.
Before we go to Commissioner David Stern for his welcoming comments, I'm interested in hearing both from Doug and Rick about your feelings about that trade activity that took place. Looks like Dallas really got some help.
Well, I like Dallas. They took 3 picks. They got Lever, they got McCray. McCray protects them in case they lose to Sam Perkins. I also like what Utah did. It gives them 4 scorers on the floor now with the 2 Malones, Stockton and Thurl Bailey. I think that will really help them in the playoffs.
Well, and of course, for Sacramento, Mata putting together a group of guys that he thinks are going to do a little bit better. They've been struggling down there, so that should be interesting to see what happens with them. And Washington had to make some changes, and now Purvis Ellison has a chance to go there. If they get John Williams back healthy, that should be an improved ball club.
It's interesting that this year, with the draft being solid but unspectacular, that a lot of the general managers are not exactly sure they want to take that big chance on the draft choice because there's not a Patrick Ewing or a David Robinson surefire. That may have something to do with some of the trade thinking.
Well, I think Steve also, what he talked about the dollars paid.
Did you know children are dying because of AIDS?
Did you know a child is orphaned every 15 seconds?
Every 15 seconds.
AIDS is devastating children and young people's life around the world.
Millions
are losing parents, teachers, brothers, and sisters.
Children are lacking the knowledge they need to keep themselves safe.
They need your support.
Basketball is just a game. This is real life for millions of children.
UNICEF works in over 150 countries to stop the devastation of AIDS.
We can create a better future.
Take the step now.
Unite for children.
Unite for children.
Unite for children. Unite against AIDS.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. To NBA fans here at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in New York, to those gathered at our team draft headquarters across the country, to our national television audience on TNT, welcome to the 1990 NBA Draft. All of the NBA team representatives have been briefed on the draft procedures. This year, the draft will consist of 2 rounds. In the first round, each team has 5 minutes to make a selection. In the second round, selections must be made in 2 minutes. Let's go to the draft. The first selection in the 1990 NBA Draft will be made by the New Jersey Nets.
And now the New Jersey Nets have up to 5 minutes to make their selection. They can also select more quickly, so we'll just keep listening very carefully for when New Jersey is ready. The New Jersey Nets, everybody knows in the NBA, only 17 wins last year. They need help in a lot of areas, Doug.
Well, I think when you look at their strengths, you talk about Sam Bowie, Chris Morris, a very talented player. They draft Mookie Blaylock last year. He was a disappointment. They get Reggie Theus as a big guard. They still have a big hole to fill, the power forward and the loss of Buck Williams to Portland. Derek Coleman is the logical selection, not only because of what he can give that team, but he also is a talented big man who I think would command the most in any kind of trade that might want to be made later.
So is it a consensus up here that it'll probably be Coleman? We've heard Scott's name mentioned too, but Coleman the guy, you think?
Well, I think most people are thinking that, but I was just told by someone that as the Nets came over here from New Jersey to come to Jacob Javits Center, they still weren't quite sure. You hear Scott's name mentioned quite a bit. I happen to agree with Doug. I think that it would be foolish to take anybody but Coleman because he really is the consensus player in this draft, and his value really is worth something to them. Plus, they have a big question mark with Hinson. Hinson had a knee problem. They don't know if he's going to be able to play and play up to his normal form. So I think that the logical choice would be Coleman.
Well, let's talk about Theus. They pick up Theus in a trade, send Hobson to Chicago. Does that say that they think Theus can be that shooting guard? Theus is getting along in years now.
Well, I think that they feel that he can do that. It's going to be real interesting to see how well Reggie gets along with Bill Fitch, who's kind of a taskmaster, and Reggie didn't exactly get along real well down there in Atlanta with Mike Fratello, so that should be an interesting matchup. But again, I just think that they have to try to keep adding people to this ball club. This team needs a lot of help in a lot of areas, and you just can't pass on a guy that everybody is so high on. It'd be very, very surprising to me if they were to go ahead and choose somebody other than Derek Coleman.
You see Derek Coleman there on the left, the third over on the right of the screen. Smiling is Dennis Scott. You see that we have about 3 minutes left for New Jersey to make this selection. Another thing about New Jersey with Willis Reed making executive decisions and Bill Fitch there and their owner and such, there's a lot of pressure this year on this number one because it's not an automatic Pat Ewing kind of selection, more than usual.
Well, you know, Bob, anytime you put yourself in the position to take that first player, if there's not that one dominant guy, there's always going to be people out there second guessing what you're doing. Now, again, I think that Derek Coleman has the most value in this draft. If you take him and you want to make a move later on August 1st when the salary cap goes up, you have the most talented player in the draft. So I think that that's what they have to do.
Well, Bob, I'll tell you, another thing that's been interesting and made it even more intriguing has been the fact that the Nets have had an incredible number of offers thrown their way to try to get that number one pick. So that's why they've been kind of sitting back and all day up until 2 o'clock when the draft deadline came, listening to all these offers. You know, it could very well be that they may have made some kind of a deal with the salary cap situation, with it going up to $11.7 million or more come August, that they might pick Coleman and may have made some kind of a deal that later on down the road, that value that Doug has been talking about may really come into play so they can use it. I mean, there's so much speculation going on here. That's what makes it interesting. And that's the whole thing about this draft. I mean, and if Coleman were not to be picked, boy, I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of scurrying on the telephone as to what's going to happen in those picks coming up after him.
And we're going to find out right now as we go up to the Commissioner, David Stern.
With the first pick in the 1990 NBA draft, the New Jersey Nets select Derek Coleman from Syracuse.
From Syracuse University, went to high school at Northern in Detroit, Michigan. He's 6'9", 230 pounds, and what can you say? He has great skills. He's an all-around basketball player, and the Nets can't really go wrong, everything considered, with a player of this caliber.
Well, you know, the one thing I like about him, he runs the floor, he can pass the basketball. He's going to become a better offensive player in the pros because it's a more wide-open game. But if you watch him outlet the ball on a rebound, he can throw it both right and left-handed. I think this kid is going to be a very good NBA player.
One of the things I like about him, Bob, is I like to look at a guy and his improvement. As a freshman, when he starts playing and he goes right on up and keeps improving, you look at his average. He went from 11.9 up to 17.9 in that area. Did a little better with his free throw shooting. This is the kind of guy you like to have.
Now you look at his strength and weakness. His strength's unlimited pro potential. Everybody agrees on that. A weakness, consistency through career, that's always a question. He's been playing 35 games a year in college and, of course, now coming into the grueling NBA. But you'll take a look that he can stick it from outside, particularly around 15, 16 feet if he needs to. But his game is power inside.
Well, he can run too, and he can do all the things you want a pro power forward to do. You're going to see him here. He can deliver around the basket, finish it with power, right, left hands. He can put it on the floor, take the ball behind his back. He's a very, very talented young man. Bob, the one thing you have to do when you draft a player like this is you got to say, will he play against Orlando and Charlotte, and not to say anything about those two franchises, they're up and coming, like he will play against the Lakers and Chicago. Those are the things you got to have.
Now let's go to Craig Sager, and we'll get you an opportunity for the first time to meet a new NBA player, the first one of 1990, Derek Coleman.
Well, thanks, Bob. Well, the waiting and anticipating is over. You're the number one pick. We weren't surprised, were you?
I was surprised. I didn't know, if New Jersey was going to pick me or not. Everything was still up in the air, but I'm glad they did. Chose me to be a number one.
Steve?
Well, Derek, you're very nervous at this moment, and that has to come from being in the position of being the number one pick. Do you feel there's going to be any internal pressure on you to be a special player in this first year?
Definitely, I feel there's going to be a lot of pressure put on me, but I'm used to playing and dealing with the situation of playing upon a lot of pressure, same as the way I play at Syracuse, so I just want to come out and do my best.
Well, there are not 30,000 fans out there, but there are a lot of people out there that were rooting for you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Derek, I saw you yesterday wearing a Pistons shirt, today a Nets hat. Do you think after growing up and rooting for the Pistons all your life, you can be a fan for the Nets?
Definitely. I think, room for the Pistons is okay, but now that I'm a New Jersey Net, it's the vice versa.
AIDS is devastating children and young people's lives around the world.
Millions are losing their parents, teachers, brothers, and sisters.
They need medicine, food, education, and protection.
UNICEF works in over 150 countries.
Is to stop the devastation of AIDS.
We can create a better future.
Unite for children, unite against AIDS.
Next up, number 2, due to the good fortune of the lottery, is Seattle. Seattle, an interesting franchise now, of course, with a new coach, K.C. Jones, out there as the guy who will be running the club on the floor. And Rick, you spent a lot of time covering Seattle, so let's talk about it. They played 500 ball this year.
Well, look at the strengths. You talked about Xavier McDaniel, Dale Ellis, a lot of talk that they've been trying to perhaps make some deals with Xavier and also with Dale. But if you're going to pick out the areas that the Sonics have to improve on, it would have to be, number one, someone to become the leader of that.
It was a beautiful day.
New York City, Gotham, the Big Apple. A city where dreams can become a reality in a single instant. This moment is upon Duke's Danny Ferry, who has dreamed of following in his father's footsteps and playing in the NBA. The time is now for Arizona's Sean Elliott, whose all-around skills will make a dream come true for some NBA team. And the dream ride of a lifetime will continue for Glenn Rice of Michigan the instant he is chosen to play in the NBA.
They never would come to me, working on a mystery, going wherever it leads, I'm running down a dream.
Live from the Felt Forum in New York City, the NBA Passage of Renewal. 2,400 rabid fans are here. 15 hopeful stars of the future in the league. 250 members of the media. And you and I will be watching the renewal of the NBA, the restocking of the talent. This is the place from which the Michael Jordans and the Magic Johnsons come, this group of young men tonight. Working with me as usual, my TBS NBA sidekicks, Rick Barry and Steve Jones. Rick, in our memory, as we were talking moments ago, never in the history of the NBA draft has it been so up for grabs. A very different draft than 1989.
Well, there's no question about that, Bob. It's a situation where I think in the past, teams tended to go for the big centers. There's not a lot of them around this year. They also tried to draft people who had the best athletic talent. Well, now it seems as though the teams are really making specific efforts to try and pick up players to shore up some of their weaknesses. So it should be a very interesting evening indeed.
Steve Jones, there are a lot of general managers biting their nails on this draft. Why so?
Well, their careers could go down the drain. Never before has it been so tight, and most of these general managers would like to be in a position lower than 10. They wouldn't have to take the responsibility for the fortunes of the franchise. It's very even, it's very close, it's going to be very interesting.
15 of the top draft choice candidates are here with us at Madison Square Garden, and Craig Sager will be talking to them. Craig?
Well, thank you, Bob. Two of the promising stars are Sean Elliott and Vlade Divac, who were both born on the same day, February 2nd, 1968. I don't know if you believe in astrology, but their horoscopes for today read, forget about slights, put-downs, and focus on new career openings and opportunities. It's in the stars.
Thank you, Craig. Now, the first pick this year, thanks to the lottery, belongs to Sacramento, and they are the ones who are the first in the order of draft. Sacramento, LA Clippers, and San Antonio won those positions by lottery. The rest are in inverse proportion to how they won games. Picks 8 through 14 are Dallas through Golden State. 15 through 21, Denver through Utah. Some of these positions are changed because of trades, you see in parentheses there, and down through the world champion, Detroit Pistons. Now, the rules of the draft are very easy. It'll be easy for you to follow tonight as we cover this thing gavel to gavel from New York. There are only 2 rounds for the first time in the history of the NBA draft. 5 minutes between each pick in the first round, and in the second round, the personnel directors, coaches, and GMs will have to really make up their minds rapidly because there's only 2 minutes between the rounds then. Now, as we told you, Sacramento is first. Bill Russell is the general manager at Sacramento. He has been zipped up about who the Sacramento Kings are going to pick since the day of the lottery. So we don't know. Even as this moment, you and I, Rick, Steve, and everybody watching and everybody here are going to find out, including the NBA people. And Rick, let's talk first of all about Sacramento, what some of the possibilities are, and what that team looks like.
Well, Bob, I'll tell you, I really think it's a situation where the Sacramento Kings have made more moves in the last few years than United Van Lines, and Bill Russell's got another surprise in store for us, because the talk around the area here is that Bill is liable to go with Purvis Ellison, maybe trying to have a clone of himself, a guy that he thinks can become another Bill Russell. And it really is a situation where nobody, I think, expected Purvis Ellison to be the guy to be picked number 1. So it's going to be very interesting to see who the Sacramento Kings come up with. That'll change things dramatically for the rest of the teams picking behind Sacramento.
Now, you saw a live shot a moment ago of Danny Ferry. You just saw a headshot there of Purvis Ellison. Sean Elliott is strong, Stacey King, Glenn Rice. What are your thoughts there, Steve?
Well, you know, Rick and a clone, at least you start with the guy with the same hand. Stacey King is left-handed. He is a scorer. This is a team that has said they want to run. They want to be able to score points. It'll be very interesting to see what they are going to do. They have been zip-locked mouths, and it's going to be real interesting to see because they are going to change the entire order of the draft. Everyone has it. The 2 best all-around players, either Elliott or Ferry, slotted at 1 or 2. But if that doesn't happen, things will change in a hurry.
There you were looking down a list of some of the 15 players who are here. Nick Anderson, B.J. Armstrong, Mookie Blaylock, etc. You were looking at some of them. You saw Gary Leonard there. You also saw Danny Ferry, etc. So one, as you look in the back row, there's Glenn Rice of Michigan, Purvis Ellison there with the dark suit, and sitting with the white shirt is Randy White, and there is Vlade Divac from Yugoslavia. And now we're ready to find out, you and I together, the commissioner of the NBA, David Stern.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. To NBA fans here at the Felt Forum in New York, to those gathered at team draft headquarters across the country, and to our national primetime television audience on Superstation TVS, welcome to the 1989 NBA Draft. There are 2 changes in the draft this year. First, the draft has been shortened from 3 rounds to 2 rounds. Second, each round will have 2 additional selections. And I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome the new fans of our 2 new teams, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Orlando Magic. In the first round, each team has 5 minutes to make a selection. In the second round, selections must be made in 2 minutes. I think everyone might be anxious to get started, so let's go. The first selection of the 1989 NBA Draft will be made by the Sacramento Kings.
around the ball. We got to run them. Got to run them.
The commissioner right now, who has a slip of paper phoned in from Bill Russell to the Felt Forum here. And that gentleman will walk up to David Stern in any moment with a piece of paper. They will check it behind. Over to the right of your screen sits Marty Blake, Rod Thorne, etc. They check it first of all to make sure that things are in order and that everybody is in agreement that it is the correct pick and the one that the Sacramento Kings want. Then they will bring that to David Stern, and he will announce it. He is as anxious to learn of this as you and I. Will it be Purvis Ellison? Will it be Danny Ferry? Will it be Sean Elliott? And now here it is.
With that first pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Sacramento Kings select Purvis Ellison from the University of Louisville.
Ellison, the only Louisville player ever to total 2,000 points and 1,000 rebounds. Jerry West of LA says he's got great hands, a great grasp of the game. A great strong performance as a senior, 17.5 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 98 block shots, 62% from the field. Marty Blake, the super scout of the NBA, says he's a great passer. He scores in and out and can handle the ball. Purvis Ellison, the #1 pick in the 1989 NBA draft, will be going to the Sacramento Kings. So Purvis Ellison, there is his stats in 88-89, his senior year, 6'9", 210 pounds. Steve Jones, your feelings about him?
Well, the thing about Purvis Ellison is he is a tremendous all-around performer. He has the ability to block shots, and that, of course, is one of the things that the Sacramento Kings will be looking for. He has the ability to make the pass in traffic and also play big inside. He plays better the closer the game is, so he's a big game performer.
Now, Rick Barry, as we look at Purvis Ellison, everybody knows in the NBA that Sacramento has a weak up-front game. How much can this rookie help the Sacramento Kings immediately?
Well, I think he can help him a great deal, Bob. I mean, as Steve pointed out, he has so many facets to his game, but I think the biggest difference would be the way he's able to play defense, and certainly with Bill Russell to be there to perhaps work with him and give him some pointers, that should help them a great deal. The one question that I have about Purvis Ellison, and so do a lot of other people, are basically his attitude. He, of course, you know, was released from the Pan Am team because of some problems there, some disciplinary problems. Is he really going to play as strong as they would need him to play to make him into the player that the Kings need?
Well, we're all going to get a chance to meet Purvis Ellison together. The first pick in the 1989 draft is with Craig Sager.
Well, thank you, Bob. It was built as a draft of uncertainty. Purvis Ellison, when were you certain that you'd be the #1 pick?
When the commissioner announced it.
Well, back when you were a freshman, you got the moniker as Never Nervous Purvis. I think we saw a new side of Purvis Ellison tonight. You look pretty nervous out there.
Actually, I wasn't that nervous.
You did break into a sweat, though.
I think all the guys down there were really anxious for the decision to be made, and I just thank God for giving me the opportunity to play basketball, and I'm just happy with the decision that Coach Russell and the rest of the management at Sacramento made.
Well, Jerry Reynolds obviously be glad to be able to coach you, but Bill Russell, I think, will be spending a lot of time at practice. What about being billed as the next Bill Russell?
Well, he was a great player, and I'm grateful to get the opportunity to be able to learn from who I consider one of the best centers of all time. And the fact that he can give me some of his knowledge, hopefully I can become or be able to be the type player that he was at the Celtics.
Well, thanks for being with us. Never or almost never, Purvis Ellison. Congratulations on being the #1 pick. Let's go back to Bob Neal.
There's the mother and father of Purvis Ellison. You don't have to tell anybody that they are very proud and very excited. Now, the second pick in the NBA draft belongs to a team that seems to always be picking very high, the Los Angeles Clippers. They have had buzzards luck with their picks, however. Steve Jones, last year you were out in Los Angeles when they picked Danny Manning. He tore up his knee. Look at their #1s. Talk about their luck with the picks.
Well, you know, it's a star-crossed franchise, and for some reason or another, these people have not been able to turn the franchise around. It's a team that's loaded with young talent, and certainly being in a position of selecting #2, now with, again, 2 great multi-purpose players sitting right in front of you. What do? Danny Ferry, Sean Elliott, and their style of play happens to be upbeat, and they like an open court game. Sean Elliott, Rick Barry?
Well, I'll tell you now, you see, Steve, this is what's making this draft so interesting, guys, is that the talk that we hear going around is that they may very well pass over Sean Elliott because they didn't like the way his knee came out in their examinations of it. Also, they may pass on Danny Ferry, a very multi-talented player, to go for perhaps one of the great shooters to come out of college basketball in many a year, and that's Glenn Rice. Now, what we're hearing is that Glenn Rice may very well be the pick of the Clippers, which means Danny Ferry and Sean Elliott, the guys that everybody picked 1 and 2, may drop down now to 3 and 4. That's got to make the Heat and also San Antonio very happy.
All right, you saw Danny Ferry there, and let's look at the strengths and weaknesses of the Los Angeles Clippers club. Their strength is they got a lot of young talent. The weakness, leadership, direction from management. As we said, it's either tough decisions by management or buzzards luck that cause them to have all their problems with their draft choices. Steve, let's go back to that decision again as you look at Glenn Rice from Michigan. Is it possible to let a player of the caliber of Danny Ferry get by if you're #2?
What they will ask is, can we trade our owner if it doesn't work out? This is a team that has had to make a real crucial decision, and one of the areas that they seem weakest in is perimeter play. Rice is a tremendous offensive player, the best pure shooter in this draft, the group of people that we have seen, so it wouldn't hurt them to take him. But again, when you talk about all-around ability, you want to try to get as many people as you can, because that's the direction that the game and the league is going.
All right, let's not forget one thing. Bob Ferry, the general manager of the Washington Bullets, is the father of Danny Ferry. They've been known to take one pick and then later on make a deal for another pick, and after that second one is made, make a trade.
AIDS is devastating children and young people's lives around the world.
Millions are losing their parents, teachers, brothers, and sisters.
They need medicine, food, education, and protection.
UNICEF works in over 150 countries.
Is to stop the devastation of AIDS.
We can create a better future.
Unite for children, unite against AIDS.
Let's go now to NBA Commissioner David Stern and find out about the Clippers.
With the second pick in the 1989 NBA Draft, the Los Angeles Clippers select Danny Ferry from Duke.
Danny Ferry, 6'10", 230 pounds, played high school basketball at DeMatha in Maryland, a spawning ground for great basketball players. He was the winner of all the awards in his senior year that Sean Elliott did not win. First player in ACC history with at least 2,000 career points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists. He is a great passing big man, can play the post position pretty well, has a good perimeter game, and not very many weaknesses to the game at all for Danny Ferry. A lot of people all year long thought Danny Ferry would be the #1 player selected in the draft. That was Purvis Ellison, so another big guy goes, and you get a great idea of just how big he is by standing beside David Stern. Bob Ferry, the general manager of the Bullets, we told you, has participated in 18 drafts, but first as a player, then as a GM. But today's draft is one of very mixed emotions for Ferry, and barring any sudden developments, and Bob Ferry is, and that means barring a trade, is going to watch another team be the owners of his son. Bob Ferry shared some emotions with us.
I was from St. Louis, and I got drafted by the St. Louis Hawks. You know, I think there was, at that time, there was only 8 teams, so there was only 8 draft picks, and it was a situation where, you know, they're just, television wasn't a big factor then. You know, the interest in basketball wasn't near as great as it is today. Since he's been little, you know, he and my other son have worked out together, and I've worked out with him, and we've really, I can remember maybe when they were both 8 years old and 6 years old, sat around and talked and how to work on their game, and I think it became obvious to me after his sophomore year in college that he had, you know, real pro potential. It's a great feeling. It's probably every father, NBA father in the league would like, you know, would like that to happen to them. And you know, it's been wonderful. He's going to be a very good player, I'm sure. Besides being a very good player, he's been even more than that as a son.
Well, like father, like son. Bob Ferry, #1 pick of the St. Louis Hawks back in 1959. 30 years later, Danny Ferry, the #1 pick of the LA Clippers. Before I touch you, anything like you to say to your father, who I'm sure is watching at the Capitol Center?
Well, just good luck with the 9th pick, and hello to everybody back at the Capitol Center.
The toughest thing about being a success, you have to keep on being a success. How did you improve your game from the High School Player of the Year in '85 to the Naismith winner in '89, now to the #1 pick of the Clippers?
Well, it was a great situation at Duke. I was able to play under a great coach, Coach K, and he really helped me refine the mental parts of the games, and as far as just controlling my head a little bit. And you know, with that, I got confidence and progressed, I think, and I just really enjoyed Duke a whole lot, both on and off the court.
Okay, well, congratulations on joining the Clippers. Purvis Ellison, the #1 pick. Danny Ferry, the #2 pick.
Bob Neal, Rick Barry, Steve Jones with you from Madison Square Garden, the 1989 NBA Draft. Sacramento took Ellison, the Clippers, Ferry, and now it is the turn of San Antonio. And let's go to the commissioner.
With the 3rd pick in the 1989 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Sean Elliott from the University of Arizona.
Sean Elliott is 6'8", 205 pounds. His hometown is Tucson, Arizona. Sean Elliott can, you use the cliche, do it all. He can, folks. It is just the simple truth. Raised his scoring average to a career-high 22.3 as a senior, 7.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists. He can play small forward and big guard. He's a great passer. And we've talked about the brace on his knee, the questions about his health. Rick Barry, as he stands up there, let's first of all talk a little bit about Sean Elliott and what the Clippers must be thinking, because we had heard that they had questions about the condition of his knee.
Well, obviously, they thought that knee was not good enough to play, but as you can see in these highlights there, Sean moved very well during his collegiate career, did a tremendous job playing for Lute Olson down there at Arizona, and I think that he's going to be very happy to develop right along with a fellow by the name of David Robinson under the tutelage of Larry Brown. I think it's going to be a situation down there where they need to have a situation where a new sitcom, Larry Knows Best. So the guys are going to have to really believe in that Larry knows best and do what Larry Brown wants, because that's the way it's going to work best.
There's the brace.
That is his good luck charm at this point. He wears it as a security blanket. He doesn't really need the brace. He has been given a medical clearance, and it's as sound as a surgically repaired knee can be. The interesting thing about Elliott is that on every situation that he's played in, he has been a winner, and he's made the people that play with him play better. So you've got a great situation for him to go to with David Robinson as a center, Terry Cummings, a veteran who can score the basketball, Willie Anderson coming off a terrific year.
Well, let's find out about what Sean Elliott thinks about the knee and also about being the newest member of the San Antonio Spurs. He's with Greg Sager.
Well, thank you, Bob. Many people had questioned your knee. You never answer a critic unless he's right. What did you tell San Antonio about your knee?
We sent a report out to all the NBA teams. We sent some good reports and we sent some bad reports, and we let them make up their own mind. But I think the good things outweigh the bad things easily.
Why do you wear the brace?
It's more psychological now. I've been wearing it for 7 years. And, once you get used to that kind of thing, it's kind of second nature to wear it on the court.
It's sort of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He wore the goggles even though there's nothing wrong with his eyesight.
Yeah, nothing's wrong with it. Nothing's wrong with the knee. If I can produce with it on, what's wrong with it?
What about the Spurs? Obviously, this is a team that has gone under a major change since last year. Terry Cummings, David Robinson, now Sean Elliott. You must be excited.
Could be real exciting. Just got to wait and see what happens.
Okay, well, thanks for being with us. Now let's go back to Bob Neal.
So Sean Elliott goes to San Antonio. Remember, this is our first time to televise the NBA draft in prime time, and you're looking at Sean Elliott here, much as in a few years ago, people were looking at a picture of a young player from North Carolina named Michael Jordan, who later turned into the Michael Jordan that we know today simply as Air Jordan. So this is really the renewal passage for the NBA. A lot of these players, if you're not big NBA or big college fans, you might not know them as household names, but they could very well become household names soon. So as we talk about Sean Elliott, I know, Steve Jones, that you feel in terms of overall talent, he's about as strong as any player who is available this year.
I think of the players who are available suited to the NBA style of play, Sean Elliott all-around ability certainly stands out in my mind. The ability to run the floor, pass it, rebound it, to play with people and make them better was the big plus for him. The big question mark, of course, was the knee. You had a bad knee,
hey,
and you played forever.
I played for 12 years with a bad knee, so that doesn't really bother me all that much. And just go by its past performances. But more importantly, he's a great young man with David Robinson, the kind of guys Larry Brown likes.
Now, next up in the 1989 NBA draft was one of last year's expansion teams, the Miami Heat. When you ask about what does the Miami Heat need, well, the answer has to be just about everything. But a lot of people think that Miami would go for a bona fide scorer, particularly a guy who can shoot it from the perimeter. Do you fellas agree with that? Obviously, they could use virtually anybody.
Well, Bob and Steve, I think you probably would agree with me. I mean, you can get a guy to shoot from the perimeter, that's great. But when you can get a guy who also can score inside, that's even better. And Stacey King is still available.
Stacey King is the guy. He has got some serious inside scoring ability, can run the floor well. Plus, he's got size. And the rule of thumb in the NBA is you take big before you take small.
Miami only won 15 games last year. Miami elected to go with a lot of young players. You may recall in expansion, Charlotte in the expansion draft picked up a lot of veteran players hoping to win a few more games, which they did.
1, 2, 3!
She is amazing.
What else can you say?
What a play! Big shot! Oh my goodness!
The crowd is going wild!
If this isn't the best game in league history, it's up there. Holy smokes! This is what the WNBA is all about. Unbelievable! smoking. In fuego. Front pitch, showtime. Chris Paul, what an electrifying talent. Oh, my!
Ronnie Rothstein is the coach in Miami. They played some great defense for a young team, but had no offense. Let's see if they help that. Let's go to David Stern.
With the 4th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Miami Heat selects Glenn Rice from the University of Michigan.
There's the scorer that Miami thinks they need. You remember Glenn Rice leading Michigan to the NCAA championship, averaging nearly 31 points a game, shattering Bill Bradley's record for most points in the NCAA tournament with 184 points. 6'7", 215. He came out of Northwestern High in Flint, Michigan. And Marty Blake, the NBA super scout, said, quote, and remember, he's seen thousands of players, Glenn Rice is one of the best shooters I have ever seen.
Bob, I tell you, this really shocks me because, sure, he is a great shooter, one of the best I've seen in many, many a year, but with Stacey King still available to go for a smaller guy, a guy who really is not that talented at getting his own shot and needs some help to get it, whereas King can do so many more things. Very surprised, but he will be an outstanding player in the league, but he's going to have his work cut out for him getting shots in Miami.
Steve Jones, we see ability to create own shot coming off the screen.
They'll be talking about Miami Vice if this doesn't come out right.
We're at Madison Square Garden in New York City with the 1989 NBA draft. Charlotte will come up next. Glenn Rice was selected by Miami. He's with Craig Sager right now.
Well, thank you, Bob. From a state championship at Flint High School to a national championship at Michigan, now to a team that lost 67 games a year ago. You think you can make the adjustment?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty well in a type of shape to make the adjustment. Yeah, I feel I'm ready.
Saw your appearance, obviously an exciting moment for them as well for you. How does this compare with winning the NCAA title?
It doesn't. It's very exciting winning the national title, but I think entering the professional league is much more exciting to me.
Well, thanks for being with us. Glenn Rice, the #1 pick of the Miami Heat. Let's go back to Bob Neal.
Glenn Rice from the University of Michigan. Now let's quickly review what's happening here. Prime time NBA draft on the Superstation. Hope you're enjoying it. Kind of like a political convention. See who's going to get nominated next. And it's about as mysterious this year. The first 4 picks have been Purvis Ellison to Sacramento, Danny Ferry to the LA Clippers, Sean Elliott to San Antonio, and Glenn Rice to Miami. Next up, Charlotte. They are between a rock and a hard place. They said, their owner, George Shen, we got to take J.R. Reed.
Well, I tell you, this is going to make it very interesting. Doug Collins and the rest of the Chicago Bull organization has to be sitting back there saying, please go ahead and do that, because that means Stacey King is still out there for him. And boy, would they love to get their hands on him, I would think, Steve.
No question about it. And making such a statement like that certainly puts your organization in a difficult position, because they may feel that they need more scoring. And at this point, Stacey King is the proven scorer with 26 plus a year ago, and Reed is coming off of an injury-scarred season. So it'll be real interesting to see how they approach this philosophically. Of course, you know, they have the problem of saying, what if? And they know that they can never forget it, since he was right down the road at Chapel Hill.
Now remember, King, of course, finished his college eligibility, and J.R. Reed is also an early entry player. As a matter of fact, J.R. Reed is not here in New York. He had to stay in Chapel Hill to take a final, even though he's leaving college early, with Dean Smith's blessing, so to speak. There have been some great undergraduates come out of there, like Michael Jordan and Worthy. Will they take J.R. Reed? Here's David Stern.
With the 5th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select J.R. Reed from the University of North Carolina.
Well, George Shen, the owner at Charlotte, said we're going to take J.R. Reed. He remained true to his word. J.R. Reed has a big body. He's 6'9", 256, His hometown is Chesapeake, Virginia. Of course, he went to the University of North Carolina. He needs some help in his rebounding for his size. As we look at him, Steve, your feelings about his potential success?
Well, I think J.R. Reed will be one of those Carolina players that expands his game offensively. He'll be a better scorer. The concern is, can he shoot the jump shot from the perimeter, having played all this time with his back to the basket? It will be real interesting how he approaches the physical aspects of the NBA. He certainly has the size.
So J.R. Reed goes to Charlotte, much as George Shinn said he would. They have passed on Stacey King from Oklahoma, who is a proven inside scorer. And by the way, in case you wondered, J.R. stands for Herman, the real first name of J.R. Reed. We'll find out more about that as he succeeds in his NBA career. So now that puts Chicago in a very interesting place. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves here, gentlemen, but J.R. Reed goes, that leaves Chicago with a beautiful opportunity to get an inside player, and they've needed some help there since Oakley left. Horace Grant is there, of course, Cartwright is there, but King can play center and power forward, Rick.
Oh, definitely, Bob. I think we've seen a couple surprises with Ellison being the #1 pick. Bill Russell doing something like that didn't surprise me. But then, of course, then you had Rice going to Miami instead of King, and the Reed situation. So I would think that Chicago would have to go with King. If they don't take King, I'm definitely going to be you might have to pick me up off the platform here.
Steve will handle that, as a matter of fact. Now, in Chicago, we have a remote hookup with Chicago, and later in this draft, we're going to be talking to Bulls head coach Doug Collins. They have 3 first-round picks. You're looking live here at the Bulls office in Chicago. Jerry Krause, Doug Collins, and the Bulls Brain Trust are back in behind those offices on Michigan Boulevard on the north side of downtown Chicago. The Bulls, the surprise team in the NBA playoffs. They took everybody tough, played everybody hard, but of course, everybody said Chicago needs to get some help from Michael Jordan and their young talent. Cartwright came and played pretty well in the playoffs for them. Horace Grant, there's been some rumors that there's been a disagreement between Jordan and Horace Grant, and that Horace Grant may be in the doghouse at the moment with Michael Jordan. But Chicago with an opportunity for King. Who else might Chicago look for? We'll find out from David Stern right now at the podium.
With the 6th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select Stacey King from the University of Oklahoma.
Well, they all like Stacey King. He is versatile. Marty Blake of the NBA says that he likes King's prospects to play center along with power forward. He rebounds, runs the court well, can block shots, has a pretty good range, 15 feet, even maybe better than that, a consensus first team All-American. He's 6'11", 235 pounds, went to high school in Lawton, Oklahoma, and now he doesn't have to go too far away to the Midwestern city of Chicago, and the Bulls are getting very good, very fast.
Well, the Bulls get fat. That's what they do. When you get a chance to play with Michael Jordan with this kind of size and mobility, it certainly is going to help your game. There's some concern about his ability to play facing the basket, but I think he's a scorer, Rick, and any scorer will find a way to get the ball in the basket. And when you're playing with Jordan, all you have to do is make yourself available, and he will do the rest.
Well, of course, as you see there, he can run the court playing that high-powered offense. The other thing he'll give them, too, is another guy to shore up their defense inside. He can block some shots.
Let's go over to Craig Sager right now and meet him.
Well, thank you, Bob. You could have gone #1. Instead, you go #6. Any disappointments?
Oh, definitely not. I'm playing with one of the best players in the NBA, and I'm very fortunate to be in Chicago.
Have you talked to Doug Collins at all, the coach, lately?
No, I haven't, but I'll be anxious to hear from him.
What's it going to be like playing with Michael Jordan? You get to watch him on TV all the time?
I think it's going to be easy for me because he'll be drawing triple teams, and I'll be able to score a little bit easier than I think I will.
Your close friend and teammate Mookie Blaylock is out there. What'd you tell Mookie on your way up here?
I just told him just to relax and just let everything fall into place. He'll be somewhere, and whoever gets Mookie Blaylock will get a steal, I guarantee you.
Well, the Bulls have a couple picks coming up. Who knows? Maybe you can still be teammates.
I hope so.
The draft will continue from New York in a moment. Please stay with us on Superstation TBS as we're live from the Felt Forum at Madison Square Garden.
Did you know children are dying because of AIDS?
Did you know a child is orphaned every 15 seconds?
Every 15 seconds.
AIDS is devastating children and young people's life around the world.
Millions.
Millions are losing parents, teachers, brothers, and sisters.
Children are lacking the knowledge they need to keep themselves safe.
They need your support.
Basketball is just a game. This is real life for millions of children.
UNICEF works in over 150 countries to stop the devastation of AIDS.
We can create a better future.
Take the step now.
Unite for children.
Unite for children.
Unite for children. Unite against AIDS.
Through NBA Cares, NBA players are able to make a lasting impact, whether we're building homes or playgrounds for kids and families, stressing the importance of education, or encouraging young people to lead an active, safe, and healthy lifestyle. Our goal is the same, to help strengthen and improve our communities. On behalf of the NBA and all of its players, I'm Kobe Bryant of the Los Angeles Lakers. The NBA, where caring happens.
There's Danny Ferry. You see him wearing his LA Clippers. I wonder if he's talking to his dad, Bob, the general manager of Washington. Purvis Ellison was the first player selected by Sacramento, then Ferry. Sean Elliott went to San Antonio, Glenn Rice to Miami, J.R. Reed to Charlotte, Stacey King to Chicago, and Indiana is about to come up next. There you see Tom Hammonds and then Tim Hardaway. There is Gary Leonard, the 7-footer from Missouri. George McLeod of Florida State, a great scorer. He is sitting beside John Morton, who came on in the NCAAs for Seton Hall, particularly against the University of Michigan. Indiana comes up next. They need some perimeter scoring, and what else?
Well, I really think they need some help on the inside, Bob. They need to get some people to do a little work, yeoman's work down underneath the basket. They got plenty of perimeter shooters.
Well, Reggie Miller has been their guy to stick it from long distance, and when I look at the team, I think they need some additional help at the point guard as well as inside, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with this pick, given the fact that they are changing philosophies and Dick Versace has his first year as the head coach.
A good question. Might they go small with offensive power? We'll find out in just a moment. Here's David Stern. Now,
with the 7th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select George McLeod from Florida State.
There you have George McLeod. He is a perimeter scorer, non-paralleled in some people's mind. There have been some questions about whether or not he has as consistent a game as some people would like, whether he plays as great a defense. He's 6'6", 205, but this man has great range. He's not really a point guard, but he passes the ball well, good ball handler, great free throw shooter, and you're surprised, Rick Barry.
Well, I really am, Bob. I mean, this really does surprise me. You got Reggie Miller, you got Person, you got Stepanovic, who plays away from the basket. I mean, they got plenty of outside shooters. Maybe there's a trade in the work here to try and do something else. The Pacers' problem is they've been playing like trotters. They got to get the right kind of people back and get on track.
George McLeod has the ability to shoot the ball long distance. He's got major league range and deep out on the floor. If you're concerned about McLeod at all, it would be his shot selection when he takes those shots. But certainly, he has big offensive skills, particularly from deep out on the floor.
That makes another player that has a problem with shot selection then for that team, doesn't it? Maybe 3 of them.
Well, you have to think there's a possibility of trades. I don't know if George McLeod has heard anything about that or whether he thinks he'll stick at Indiana. He's with Craig Sager right now. Let's find out.
Well, thank you, Bob. The luck of the draft can affect a player's career, but of all the players that talked to the past several days, you thought with your versatility you could fit in anywhere. What about Indiana?
Well, yes, I feel like I can fit in with Indiana. They're a very young team. They got a good front court. And hopefully my presence even make the backcourt even better.
I know you're nervous out there. Who's the first person you're going to call?
I'm going to call my mom.
What are you going to tell her?
I love her.
One of your classmates at Florida State, Deion Sanders, went prime time this year, of course, with his football career and also his baseball career. Now you've gone prime time as well.
Well, yes, you know, Deion is a real good friend of mine, and all I can say is hello, Deion.
All right, George McLeod, now a member of the Indiana Pacers. Let's go back to Bob Neal.
Well, Pat Kennedy, the head coach at Florida State, is here, and Pat Kennedy had said earlier that he thought that George McLeod could end up somewhere around Indiana if the things fell right in this draft. Once again, we have no firm rumors of any kind of Indiana trade. We are hearing one rumor bouncing around here, though, that we'll pass along to you. Still just a rumor, is that Chicago may be trying to move Dave Corzine, their center power forward, backup player, to Orlando for a draft choice. Chicago has 18 and 20 coming up later in the draft.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, Steve. I mean, they just got Stacey King, so Corzine does become a bit expendable.
And of course, now they're looking to improve the depth and quality of their team and thinking that they would have a few years to develop it, so it's going to be real interesting. You know, the next team up is Dallas. And Dallas is only thinking about one thing. Remember when we had a chance to select Karl Malone? Who is the guy that everybody's been talking about as the next Karl Malone? It happens to be Randy White. He's sitting there. The question is, will they take him because they need help up front?
There have been also some rumors here that Tom Hammonds is liked a great deal by the Dallas Mavericks. Hammonds is the 6'9" power forward candidate from Georgia Tech. So Randy White, Tom Hammonds are pretty good possibilities. We were talking earlier, Rick, about Dallas has a lot of big players, up-front players, not necessarily a lot of real good inside scoring punch, however.
Well, that's true, Bob, and I think that White would be a good choice for them. I mean, he does give them a lot of versatility. He can play facing the basket. He can post up. He can do a lot of things for them, and he would be a very good addition to that team. And if Roy Tarpley's problems are straightened out, this is not a team that some people are saying is rebuilding. This is still a team that'd be a very tough basketball team next year. They still have one of the best back courts and some pretty good depth in the front court. If they can get a little bit more out of a couple of people, they'll be tough again next year.
You were looking at a picture of Randy White from Louisiana Tech, and a lot of people are wondering if Randy White is the second coming of Karl Malone. The similarities between the two are really uncanny. In fact, this week, an article in Sports Illustrated about White was titled Mailman 2, in deference to Malone's nickname. Of course, they both attended Louisiana Tech. They're almost identical in height and weight. The final year stats also almost identical, with a slight edge to White. Playing with the Utah Jazz, Malone, known as the mailman because he always delivers, has become the preeminent power forward in the NBA. Can White continue to follow in Malone's footsteps and arrive special delivery in the NBA?
I think right now you should give Randy his credit and let Randy White be Randy White, and don't compare him with anybody, because no players played alike in the league. I don't care who you are.
Karl Malone's proved himself. He's the mailman. Maybe you call Randy White the mail kid. He's only 21. Let's find out what Dallas does. Here's the commissioner, David Stern.
With the 8th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Randy White from Louisiana Tech.
There's Randy White. He's 6'8", about 250 pounds. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana. Many comparisons to Karl Malone. He came from a very small town. He's worked out with the same trainer who worked with Karl Malone. He has actually pumped some iron with Karl Malone and said he had no idea how hard the mailman worked. Did you watch the power game of Randy White, Steve Jones?
White is very strong inside, and he also has the ability to put the ball on the floor and accelerate, and I think that's where the comparisons come from, that they do so many things in a similar vein. And for Dallas, they remember they had a chance to select Karl Malone, and they don't ever want to hear that they passed on Junior.
What's your thinking about this, Rick Barry? How the comparison between the two?
Well, I think they are similar players. Of course, Karl has grown up, and this young man really hasn't. But I think it was a good pick for Dallas. They needed help in the front line. They certainly cannot expect that their front line people now are going to provide all the scoring for years to come. Adrian Dantley is not going to be around forever, and you don't know what the situation is with Karl Malone. So an excellent choice for Dallas.
Well, let's get an opportunity now to meet Randy White. I remember when Karl Malone was drafted a few years ago, he was so emotional he actually shed a tear. Let's find out about the emotions of Randy White.
Well, thank you, Bob. The comparisons will probably continue, but now that you're in Dallas, you're finally out of the shadow of Karl Malone.
Well, you know, it's a pleasure being compared to a player like Karl. You know, he's a great player, and I think, you know, being compared to him is a compliment to myself. But I told myself last night in my prayers that once I made it to the league and once I'm finally picked as a player, that I would answer no more Karl Malone questions.
Sort of like a homecoming. You've been training and working out in Dallas.
Yeah, I've been working out there for the last month or so, and you know, when I did the Sports Illustrated article, I really, you know, impressed that I would like to be in Dallas, and I was fortunate enough by God that he put me there.
Well, thanks a lot, Randy White, the newest member of the Dallas Mavericks. Up next, the Washington Bullets as the NBA draft continues in prime time on Superstation TBS.
Through NBA Cares, the NBA family demonstrates its responsibility as citizens of the global community. Whether it's our Basketball Without Borders program that takes us all over the world, or our efforts to strengthen and improve communities here at home, we work to leave a lasting impact every place we go. It's our way of showing that the NBA cares. On behalf of the NBA and all of its players, I'm Ray Allen of the Boston Celtics. The NBA, where caring happens.
Our digital update of the 1989 NBA draft from the Felt Forum in Madison Square Garden. Purvis Ellison, #1 to the Kings. Danny Ferry went to the Los Angeles Clippers. Sean Elliott to the Spurs. No real shocks there of any great import, but then Glenn Rice to Michigan, J.R. Reed to Charlotte, Stacey King to the Bulls, and they got to be singing in Chicago. George McLeod, a somewhat of a surprise to Indiana, and Randy White, the power forward, goes to the Dallas Mavericks, and those are the first 8 picks in the draft. Coming up next are the Washington Bullets, and let's find out exactly who Washington takes. Here's, once again, David Stern.
With the 9th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Washington Bullets select Tom Hammonds from Georgia Tech.
Tom Hammonds, a power forward from Georgia Tech. He is a Florida native. He is 6'9", very quick, very strong, has a pretty good turnaround jump shot. I happen to know him through his college career, and an upstanding student who's about to graduate from Georgia Tech, going to have his jersey retired. There are some questions, however, Steve Jones, about just how wide-ranging the talents of Tom Hammonds are.
Well, I think one of the things that they would like about Tom Hammonds is his work ethic. This guy comes to play every single night. He basically is an inside player, a turnaround jump shooter, and certainly as a big guy, you don't have to worry as much about handling the ball. But he likes it down close to the paint. They call him the Terminator. We'll find out as he gets any of that from Wes Unseld as they try to build on really a team that's been an overachiever through the course of the past season when they won 40 games when no one expected they would.
Tom Hammonds, definitely a proven inside scorer. How much he'll develop with Washington, we'll find out next year in the 89-90 NBA season. Now, coming up next, the first pick of this year's expansion teams, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, of course, Minnesota will be new into the NBA this go-round, but the pro basketball is not really all that new to Minnesota. Those of us old enough, of course, that includes all three of us, could remember the Minneapolis Lakers. They were one of the first dynasties in the National Basketball Association. They, as a matter of fact, won some titles back. 1948-49 was the first title they won. They won 5 out of 6 titles during that span. And the Lakers were led by the league's first dominant big man, 7-footer George Mikan, a 3-time NBA scoring leader. Some other notable Lakers include, of course, the Hall of Famer Slater Martin. So even though they're an expansion team in the NBA, the Lakers in the 59-60 season left Minneapolis, went to Los Angeles, but they're about to get back, and let's go to Minneapolis. Paul Ryden is standing by there, and they've got a big party.
They sure do, Bob. Minnesota Timberwolves have their first full house, and it's at the Minneapolis Convention Center, where some 13,000 folks have gathered here for what they're calling the biggest draft party in NBA history. It's a wild one. Now upstairs, Coach Bill Musselman and his staff are hard at work at the rest of the draft. They're concerned with that. They are the brains of the organization. But down here, these 13,000 folks, this is the heart of the organization. They're just minutes away from their very first draft, and they're 29 years away from their last NBA franchise. It was a good one, 5 NBA titles, as you mentioned, but this is a new day, a new time, and we're with the first Timberwolf of all, Rick Mahorn. Rick, back here, they're saying bad boys. You're going to bring the franchise here now that it's retired?
I couldn't even hear you. All this noise and excitement is so great to hear all this great fan support we have here.
You guys, you met an exciting challenge in Detroit. You won the NBA title. Are you excited about the new challenges here now? You got a whole new set of problems to deal with.
Well, we have a good nucleus coming in right now, and everybody's looking forward to working hard and making sure that we can get the winning spirit back here in the Minnesota area.
Now, Isaiah Thomas said the bad boys are no more. They're retired. Are you going to open up a franchise here?
I'll probably open up a franchise, an ice cream franchise. Let's go.
No bad boys.
No bad boys.
Okay, listen, we all should mention also that Rick is the first official NBA, the first official Minnesota Timberwolf injury. You chipped your tooth today. You okay?
Yes, I am. I'm very much, I'm adequate right now.
Chewing on another player, no doubt, but you're all right.
Yes, I am.
Forget the back. The tooth is okay. At least you can talk. That's good. Thanks, Rick, for being with us, and good luck. There might be some people in Minneapolis who never forgave the Lakers for leaving in the first place, and I guarantee that they are going to be very forgiving of their Timberwolves, at least for now, while they welcome back the NBA to Minneapolis with open arms. Let's go back now to New York.
Thanks, Paul Ryden. Well, Rick Mahorn, one of the toughest inside players in the NBA. Tom Hammonds has just been drafted by Washington. He'll have to face Rick Mahorn. He's with Craig Sager now.
Well, thank you, Bob. Tom Hammonds here with Danny Fair, a couple old rivals. You're going to play for his dad. Any way you'd want to switch hats?
No, I think I'll keep the hat I have.
All right. All right, well, obviously, college opens opportunities and doors. You have to walk through those doors yourself. Any insecurity at all about leaving college now, going to the NBA?
No, I'm really looking forward to the new challenge. I had a great 4 years there at Georgia Tech, and Coach Crimmins and all the whole coaching staff taught me a lot, but I'm really looking forward to the new challenge there at Washington.
What are you doing this summer as you prepare for your NBA career?
I'm going back to school and trying to finish up my degree.
So they can hang number 20 in the rafters?
Exactly.
Okay, Tom Hammonds, thanks for being with us. Let's go back to Bob Neal.
Just a few weeks ago, Minnesota and Orlando conducted the expansion draft to take players, unprotected players from NBA rosters, current veterans. And Minnesota did a pretty good job, particularly up front. Look at that. Mahorn, Steve Johnson, Brad Lohaus, they're big there. David Rivers from L.A., Mark Davis, Scott Roth, etc. We'll see how they're going to expand on that roster now with the regular draft. Here's David Stern.
With the 10th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Pooh Richardson from UCLA.
Pooh Richardson from UCLA. Jerome is his real first name. He's a pure point guard, 6'2", 183 pounds. Pac-10 career assist leader. He can play defense too, Steve Jones.
Well, he can play defense. He's done a great job at UCLA of setting people up and also scoring the basketball. If there's a concern, it's been his weakness at the free throw line. It'll be very interesting to see what they do with the combination of Pooh Richardson and David Rivers, but you can see that Richardson has thrown again a curve in the draft at 10. But if you looked at that lineup that they showed us with the people they selected, they were top heavy and big people, and they may have felt that they needed some additional help at the guard position.
Yeah, it could very well be that they plan on playing both of those guys. So I would have thought maybe they would have gone for a bigger two guard, somebody that could put the ball in the basket could score some points. Todd Lichty's still out there. He's not a bad prospect in that position.
We haven't been right all night. So
Why change things? It's true.